part 17 of Bible Mandela effects. If you're unfamiliar with Mandela effects, I recommend that you watch the introductory video of the series and watch um, some of the other episodes leading up to this one. And today we'll get started with our first Bible verse, 1 Corinthians 16:15. In the New International Version says, "You know that the household of Stephanas were the first converts in Achaia, and they have devoted themselves to the service of the Lord's people. I urge you, brothers and sisters," and the verse continues, "to submit to them, to listen to them." The main part of this verse is they have devoted themselves to the service of the Lord's people. The phrase devoted themselves is what we're looking at. As we look at other translations, we see they are spending their lives in service to God's people, is the idea, devotion to God, to service to God, helping others. English Standard Version, and that they have devoted themselves. Berean Study Bible, devoted themselves. Berean Literal Bible, devoted themselves. But look at the King James Bible, the wording of this. "I beseech you, brethren, ye know the house of Stephanas, that it is the first fruits of Achaia, and that they have addicted themselves to the mystery of the saints." And I do not remember addicted themselves as a Bible verse. Devoted themselves is the most common in all of the translations as you continue down. Nowhere do you see addicted themselves, and that's always a red flag. As I go through all of these different translations, you don't see addicted themselves. When you see, especially in the King James Bible, one specific example of how the King James Bible is different than the others, that's always a red flag. So as we look at the original Greek for this verse, let's look for that word. "But I appeal to you, brethren, you know the house of Stephanas, that it is first fruit of Achaia, and for service to the holy ones they arranged themselves." And the word tasso is that they assigned themselves, they appointed themselves, they were devoted to what they were doing, and they made arrangements to dedicate themselves to these people. So with that being the case, the idea that we see they addicted themselves is very strange wording, especially when you don't see it in the other translations. So that's an example of a Mandela effect, a verse that doesn't match what we are used to seeing. Again, just seeing it in the King James, they have addicted themselves. So I challenge you, look in any King James Bible and you'll see addicted themselves. I don't remember seeing that before. Next, let's look at Luke 5:17. New International Version. "One day Jesus was teaching, and Pharisees and teachers of the law were sitting there. They had come from every village of Galilee and from Judea and Jerusalem, and the power of the Lord was with Jesus to heal the sick." The main thing we're looking is teachers of the law. So let's look at the other translations. Teachers of the law, New Living English Standard, teachers of the law. Berean Study Bible, teachers of the law. Teachers of the law, Berean Literal. Now look at the King James. "And it came to pass on a certain day as he was teaching that there were Pharisees and doctors of the law sitting by." The phrase doctors of the law, I don't remember seeing doctors in the King James Bible. And again, when you look at all the other translations, you see teachers in all of them. So doctors of the law sounds strange. So again, let's look at the original Greek to see what's going on. In the verse, "And it came to pass on one of those days he was teaching that there were sitting down Pharisees and teachers of the law." Specifically, the word nomad ad askalos is specifically teachers of the law. You don't see doctors in anywhere. So as far as the definition of it. So it just seems strange to see doctors instead of teachers of the law as in all the other translations. So that's why this is a Mandela effect. Again, the King James Version is different than the others. Let's look at another one. Luke 13:32. Okay, so the Pharisees had come to Jesus and they were telling him he that he needed to leave because Herod wanted to kill him. And Jesus replied, "Go tell that fox, I will keep on driving out demons and healing people today and tomorrow, and on the third day I will reach my goal." The phrase today and tomorrow is consistent in all of the other translations, and you get to King James and you see the spelling of it, today and tomorrow. So that's one aspect of this verse. Maybe that's just an old English spelling of it, 1611 King James Bible. But, and I do cures today and tomorrow. He doesn't say that he will heal them, but the word cures just sounds strange. So again, looking in the original Greek, we sort of get an idea of the flow of what we have. And he said to them, having gone, you tell to the fox this. So specific calls him a fox, that he's sly, he's trying to trick him. Behold, I cast out demons and works of healing. So it specifically talks about healing or curing today and tomorrow. So it's just the way that it's translated. And it very well could just be something in the Old English 1611 Bible, the way that it was written at that time. But it's just strange to see that spelling. And cures, you would think it'd be healing. So this is an example of a Mandela effect that could just be the wording of it in the Old Testament, in the old language, 1611, could be just strange compared to us today. But I wanted to include it just as a possibility. Now, one more. Leviticus 2:7. This is interesting. New International Version says, if your grain offering is cooked in a pan, it is to be made of the finest flour and some olive oil. Okay, just saying how offerings should be prepared. Consistent with all the translations, but look at the King James. And if thy oblation be a meat offering, baken in the frying pan, it shall be made of fine flour with oil. So we have some strange things going on here. Number one, the spelling of baked is unusual. Baked in the frying pan, again, put together. All of the others are just say pan, but it says frying pan and it's put together. And then thirdly, meat offering. All of the other say grain offering. So that's interesting. Okay, so this is a Mandela effect because the King James Bible, there's several things different than the other translations. The word baked. Here in the New King James Version, it's spelled correctly, but it's misspelled in the King James Bible. Very unusual to see something like that. So let's look at the Hebrew. And if sacrifice be from the great your gift offering, fine flour with olive oil it shall be made of. So it's talking about the sacrifice that's given freely. It's a gift offering. So it doesn't really say whether it's grain or meat, but in all the translations it's assumed that it would be a grain offering, especially with what it's mixed with. So to see the other translations all saying grain, but the King James says meat, notice it doesn't say anywhere that it has to be baked, but again it's assumed that's put into the King James, but it's misspelled. And here it's talking about the great, and it doesn't really specifically say that, but to go from that to the frying pan, and frying pan all one word. There's just a lot of unusual things about this verse, the way that it's spoken, the way that it's spelled out, that's just unusual. So that's why I think this is a strong possibility of a Mandela effect as well.